Hello and welcome to the Painting with Commentary video for the Icon of the Realms Platinum Dragon Bahamut from Paint to Life episode 21. I'm GMA Tank. Let's go on through this project and what I did. Right out of the way, we will see that this was not an unpainted miniature. It actually came from the factory with a paint job already. I was not a fan. Despite being a collector's edition piece that's somewhat rare, I decided that needed to be changed into that. There is Bahamut. He's supposed to be platinum. Didn't like any of the colors of the original. This miniature is a WizKids model. It's from the Dungeons and Dragons Icon of the Realms, as I mentioned. But that, to me, that finished dragon there looks much more along the lines of what I would imagine a platinum dragon would look like. So let's get painting here. Very first thing I'll say is I started with a Chaos Black priming with the Citadel paint line. Chaos Black did what needed to be done. And then as you can see, we're removing the lead belcher for my base coat. Right away, I did not strip that miniature. The Chaos Black primer is super fine, super thin particles. Even though this was pre-printed, I think that because it came from the factory, from a mold, from a production mold, I don't know if they used paints there or colored plastic or however they make that sort of thing. But as you can see in this, or maybe you can't, but it was very smooth. That Chaos Black went on there without any problems, no glumping, no lodge. Just keep your can kind of far from the model, give yourself lots of space, apply it in short bursts, and I think that the Citadel primers are one of the best out there. They give great coverage, and as you can see, look at those wings. I mean, they're super smooth. You would never know that that was painted underneath that black. So right out of the way, there's your first question. Did I strip it? No, I did not. But I've never repainted a miniature before this one, so I had no idea what to expect. I knew that I wanted to prime it black because I was going to be going for metallic colors, and I wanted any of the transparencies to come through and be darker than lighter. And for the most part, that's what happened. This lead belcher coat that I'm applying to the entire surface of the dragon, it goes everywhere. I used a thin, on my wet palette, I have some lead belcher with some water, just to keep the paint thin. You don't want to glob up any of the details in the scales or in the underbelly or in the teeth. But you know, the thing is too, when painting large models like this, I find it's easier. They're more forgiving. The details, you're not going to gum them up as much as you will some of those really tight squeezes in the lines, such as what the hell are they called? I'm losing my mind. It's late. It's Sunday night. I'm doing this so I won't have to do it tomorrow. The Citadel in general, the Warhammer minis, like any of the resin, those tiny little adjudicators and things, all those little details they have, and those models are absolutely amazing. They look great. They're expensive though. In most cases, I find that they are a lot more forgiving because they're bigger. And normally, as you guys may know, I paint a lot of the Norzal's Marvelous Miniatures, and even though they're pre-primed with that gray Vallejo primer, because they're so big, it's very forgiving. If you start getting to the small Norzal's Marvelous Miniatures, though, you'll find a lot of the details can get muddied up, even with that gray primer. But I haven't painted too many of those. I have a lot of small Reaper Bones minis that I've primed myself when I need to paint them. But for these big guys, no problem. As you can see, I've almost finished my lead belcher base coat. I'm not holding my mini with any type of peg or cork or anything. I just use my hands. The paint dries about as fast as I need it to. As I'm spinning it around, I can hold it without getting paint all over my hands. Okay, now onto the metallic blue paint from Tamiya that I picked up explicitly for this Platinum Dragon. I wanted to have a little bit of blue tint underneath his scales. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 1, that is just straight out of the Tamiya pot, metallic blue. Very dark, too dark. I didn't want it to be blue. So number 2 there, I added water to try and thin it out. Thin it did. It displaced some of the metallic essence and the metallic blue, but it also made it very globby, and it didn't lighten it up as much as I needed it to be lightened. So 2 was not going to work for me. 3 is me taking the original Tamiya paint and adding a Liquitex Professional Flow Aid to it. A liquid water, except it displaced it a little bit more and made it blotchy. 4 in that picture is what I ultimately did, and that's what I'm going to show you coming up past this. So if you have any extra scrap pieces of model lying around, keep them, because for tests like this, they're perfect. So number 4 was, there it is, the Tamiya metallic blue and the Games Workshop Citadel contrast medium. It's a technical paint. It's a white milky-like substance. It's designed to thin out contrast paints. I've used it before in some of my other videos. Agrigos Dunes, if I recall. It really cuts some of that harsh yellow out of it and makes it more earthy. I added a little more there, but it really cuts this Tamiya metallic blue. It makes it a much lighter. You can see the metallic separating in there, but that looks much lighter. And now when I apply it on the dragon, as you see, metallic blue thin, instead of taking on that super dark blue look, that lead belcher underneath comes right through, and now it looks like a tinted blue metal, and I was super happy with that. And I knew at this point that this was gonna work. And really, this video is pretty much more shades of silver and deciding what to do with this thin metallic blue. I knew I was going up the body like a snake. As you can see, half the tail on both sides I'm gonna do. And I knew I was going to do under the arms, and anywhere where there were these little teeny scales was going to get this treatment. The question I ultimately had was, though, do I dry brush over top of it with a silver or a metal, or do I leave it blue? And I left it blue, and if you saw my Instagram post on Wednesday, the work in progress Wednesday shot, it was left as blue, and it looked good and sharp, as you can see in this video right here. It's very defined, especially with the rest of him being various shades of silver in different colors. The problem was, though, this is gonna sound weird, I started seeing him like a superhero, and the blue was like his spandex. Okay, so here's this metallic dragon with all this armor on him, all these plates and all these badass sharp edges and rawr, and he's got this blue jumper underneath. And as soon as I got that thought into my head, I couldn't get rid of it. And no matter how hard I tried, it was not going anywhere. That's when I realized, one, I needed to go all the way up to his head. You can see on his neck there, it's currently lead belcher. There are little scales, but I thought they're not little like these ass scales are, where see those tail scales are tiny. The ones by his neck are more like plate-like, so I didn't originally blue them with this metallic blue. But later in the video, I'm going to make another vat of this stuff, because this was done over a couple days, and I'm going to go all the way up to his neck, even on that plating, because ultimately this dragon's going to have a blue face. He's going to have this blue running down his body. He's going to have metal plates all over the place, the platinum scales. And as I said, when everything was said and done, as we'll see in the end, he is wearing a blue jumpsuit. We couldn't have that. So we're going to give him one more shot of some dry brushing on top of all this metallic blue. But let's look at what we're doing for now without jumping too far ahead. So this figure has all kinds of really well-defined plates that are quite different. Unlike some of the dragons that I've painted where they have thicker plates that are just, some are rectangular, some are triangular, but they kind of look the same. You can really see these tiny little scales that I'm painting blue here, and then the big rectangular armor plates that are not blue. And that was really easy to delineate where they all were. So as I'm painting this blue, I'm starting to think of the different colors of silver I'm going to use. We know that Stormhost Silver is a Citadel paint that's super metallic and super white, like it's like super shiny. So I'm going to use that last. And then there's a couple other. Runefang Steel is one that's very bright. But then I'm going to have one more for a darker, like I think it's Iron Warriors. Yes, I think that will come. And then there's one called Grey Knight's Steel, I think. We'll see it. That's kind of got a blue tint. So on these shoulder pads, I call them, the knee pads, the plates of armor that go over that, we're going to use different colors of gray. But now check this out. We're going to do the wings. So we're going to use some Apothecary White. But again, I'm thinning it using that contrast medium. The contrast medium thins this contrast paint so that instead of being so gray, as I usually love it, on these wings, on the wing membrane, I really wanted a thin, I didn't want them to be reflective lead belcher. I didn't want this whole dragon to glow. So I used an Apothecary White, thin with that contrast medium that we just saw. You can see me painting it on all the wing panels, front and back. It's very runny. That's okay. Take your time. Paint a couple panels, leave it vertical, let them dry before you rotate him. Because the last thing you want to do is paint some, flip them, and either one, get it on your hands, or two, have it run into puddles and pools that look silly. No, we're here still. As you can see, I'm applying this lightened mixture everywhere on his flat and his wings, and this really turned out really well. You can see it going on almost like chalky, but it really cut the glare of the metallic. But it's so thin with the thinned out medium that it let the lead belcher shine through. So what you get is a milky white lead belcher that's not shiny. And everywhere there should be like this leather wing sail came out really sharp. And thank you, Citadel, for making a technical contrast medium. And this is going to go on for another minute. So let's understand, folks. Contrast medium, it's a technical paint. You would never think to buy it necessarily. Why? What's it for? It's for thinning out contrast paints. I'll just use water. Yep, you can. But as you saw in my demonstration earlier, using water doesn't thin it equally. By putting this in, which is probably the base that they use to create these things, it really gives you control over the opacity of the final color that you're going for. And in this case, it's exactly what I wanted to do. So we've gone through and we finished it. And again, I went slow so it didn't pool. It was nice. All 8 times 2, 16 panels. Now here we are on these knee pads, granite steel. That's the color. So it's silver, but you can already see in the video. See how it's got a little blue tint to it? Beautiful color. It's very paladin-y. If I'm painting like a knight on a horseback, I always use granite steel because to me, this has that blue steel kind of cool look that the other steels don't necessarily have, or they look more, like an orc wouldn't have armor that's kind of got this blue tint to it. He would have rusty, kind of irony, null and oily kind of armor. But for our paladins, absolutely granite steel. Now there's just enough of these plates on his knees and on his shoulders and on his arms that the granite steel does its job. Now it's not on his belly. I just used it for his knee pads, his shoulder pads, and his arm guards for whatever else they would call them, okay? For his belly, I wanted to use a different silver altogether. So when you see this finished dragon, you might not realize all the different colors of silver that are in it, the platinum, because you just can't tell, but that's okay. So what did I use? Is it Runefang? Yeah, Runefang. So as you can see, this one's a little bit more white, a little bit more light and reflective. Oh, I just turned on my headlamp. Hence the sudden explosion of color. Again, get yourself a headlamp. Especially, I think for here, it was mostly, I didn't want to lose sight of the ridges. I didn't want to put too much paint spilling over one of these plates on his belly so that it pooled underneath the ridge and then I couldn't see it because it's reflective and very like flat, monotone. So, you've got this big snot puddle of paint built up underneath one of the ridges and you don't notice it. It dries. Although it shrinks, it still dries as a nodule. And now instead of having these nice, beautiful lines under his belly and his tail, you have this big little teeny grape-like nodule of hardened paint. So if you scratch it off, now you have to touch it up. So get extra light, get yourself a headlamp, something that lets you see where you're working for those dark shadows, or even in the case of the lights, in this case, really help me see. And that's why that paint goes on nice and smooth, thin, and definite, And yeah, that looks really sharp. So you can see the granite steel with the Runefang steel and the lead belcher, which is underneath. I only did one coat of all these because I didn't need to do any more, because the lead belcher base was enough, not to mention the black prime. It was all enough that the opacity of the paints shone through. And this is back to Rune Knights, I think, because yes, I'm just touching up his areas around there. Okay, folks, so here we are, Ironbreaker. This is a medium color between the lead belcher and the Runefang. It's a medium. So any of the top plates, like all these things, and I'm not painting, this is like my layer paint, I'm just kind of licking every single one of these scales with my brush. Anywhere where there was a little scale, I don't want to paint the whole scale, just lick, 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 just the top, so that underneath will still be Lead Belcher, or in the case of some of the other areas, underneath will still be Runefang. All right, so hit all these little thingamajigs. You can see my blue, it's looking good. Here we are again, touching up. Stormhost Silver. Okay, Stormhost, as I said earlier, it's the brightest one, it's the metallic one. See how I'm putting them on to these facial tendrils like the gold dragon? This is going to be the brightest silver we have in our arsenal, so once you put this on, you're not going to highlight anything else on top of it. So this is his teeth, his tendrils, his mouth, his eye, the tips, the claws of his wings, which that one there was a little black actually from the primer still. The Lead Belcher didn't stick. All those claws on the ends of the winglets, there they are. His claws, his toenails, etc. All Stormhost. And I also did the spikes running up his back the same way. The spikes running up his back, like the shark fins, also got the Stormhost. So now we're back to the neck, as I told you earlier. Again, those aren't the same little scales as everywhere else, but they definitely are. It needed to go blue all the way to his head. It looked stupid just stopping at his shoulders and not going up to his head. So I had to whip up some more of my thin metallic substance, and unfortunately the wing of this angle blocks a lot of the shot, so I apologize for that. So again, take your time, gently apply this metallic blue thin, butt it right up against those crispy scales. Okay, and we see here again touching up the plates. Try not to make a boo-boo, but if you do, it can be fixed easily enough. Again, a bigger model is very easy to get into some of those little crevices because your brush tip fits perfectly. Smaller models are a lot less forgiving. And again, Wing's going to say, no, you no see today. And there we go, it's gone. Looking at his neck, I like it. Dry brush, there we go. Using a Runefang steel, I decided the jumpsuit had to go. So Runefang steel with a paper towel, wipe off the excess paint, and I'm dragging it from everywhere there's a steel, like the shoulders, dragging it down on top of the blue. Do the shoulders, the arms, the legs, everywhere. I want this to not be a jumpsuit anymore. And there are so many tiny little scale details that as I go through this whole dragon, you'll see that in the finished because I didn't film enough. Time to do the base, Milliput. What am I using Milliput for? Because I didn't just want a flat base. I wanted to build up some nodules where I wasn't going to do coins. You know, these dragons are celestial, right? They live, well, these dragons, sorry, Bahamut. He's the god, he's lawful good, he's in Mount Celestia. So I wasn't going to do money or coins. My son had a crystal quartz rock, and he offered it to me to use because it looked, he had a blue one and a white one, and I thank you, Evan, for letting me use this. He brought it down, we wrapped it in a cloth, smashed it with a hammer to get pieces. I still didn't want a flat area, so as you can see, I put some Milliput on. Milliput takes about 4 hours to dry. Put some of our tasty white glue on. Now this is fun. So we're going to put white sand down for all that white quartz and blue quartz, but I also mixed in some glitter, some silver glitter. Not tons, I don't want it to be silver glitter, but I mixed it in just so that, as you can see there, when you look at the white sand, there are little teeny pieces that reflect the glitter, and that's what's there. Now we have the broken up quartz stone, which I was using the white glue, broke it. I made this jagged looking landscape of crystal, all the little teeny shard pieces I sprinkled on top of the sand. I mixed a water and PVA glue solution and poured it all on top. I had to do a couple coats of glitter and sand to cover the Milliput because I was a bonehead and forgot to paint it before I sanded it, so the yellow Milliput was kind of popping through. But when it was all said and done, folks, it was it. It was a very basic base, but I thought it was very effective. So there he is again, the original miniature, factory painted, very dark, very blue, very, okay, that's platinum, sure. And here he is finished, Bahamut Platinum Dragon. You can see the dry brushing on all that blue jumpsuit all the way down the tail, everywhere from silver to blue, just to give enough of a cover on the high level that it obscures that, breaks up that one dimensional jumpsuit look. His eyes were left as Stormhost silver, and then I put some sapphire blue gem paint on them. and then the tiniest little dot of silver on them to make them shine. There he is again from the side. Those fins on the back of his arms and legs were all done with Stormhost silver. The spines down his back were a combination of Stormhost silver and lead belcher. Some of the stuff I didn't hit in the video. And there, see those quartz crystals? They turn out beautiful. And there he is from the back. Alright folks, that's another painting video with commentary. I hope you enjoyed this. I know not many of you will paint this exact model, given the rarity of it, but I hope you learned some stuff from my process, and I hope that answered some of your questions. If not, please like the video, share the video, leave some comments below if you want me to go over something else or something I missed. And other than that, I hope everyone in your family is safe and you're doing great, and we'll see you next time. I'm GMA Tank. Bye-bye.